I'd like to start this off with a apology. I know that I can get a little carried away. And I've done that as of late with video games. I understand that that's not, what everybody's cup of tea is. And I'm sorry for that. Not to say that we're going to stop doing the video game stuff here. But I definitely got to get back to some After Prison Show content. So here we are today. Got a lot of things in mind. And one thing that I want to do is I want to get back to sharing prison stories. I love telling stories. And you guys loved me telling stories for a long time. So hopefully you'll love me sharing again. Unfortunately, I'm not too sure about this particular story, but we'll see. I was reminded of this recently during a live stream that we did, and I even wrote it down right here, actually. Joe's prison hustle $1 million scam idea while in prison. Yeah, that's gonna ring some bells right there. That's definitely not gonna land too well. Sounding like a con artist and whatnot. But hear me out. While I was in prison, I had this idea come to me, and it wasn't until I was doing the prisoner pen pal Casanova love connection. You see, Joe's hustles metamorphed from tattooing, first starting in the jail with the pick and poke tattoos, using the graphite in the water for ink, getting to prison, upgrading to a prison tattoo machine, and that carrying me for the majority of my time in prison. It wasn't until halfway through my prison sentence of 7 years, or getting toward the later half of my prison sentence, where I would finally get me some prison pen pal connections made. And I'll never forget how that came to be. It was through my brother, my estranged brother, sadly enough. But, throughout our adult lives, sadly, that's the way that it's been. Joe was always in trouble, and yeah. But anyways, during the later half of my prison sentence, I would end up writing a letter to my brother and basically pleading with him, hey, please, I know we don't have that great of a relationship. You don't owe me nothing. All I've been is a constant screw up. You've watched that, being my younger brother. We're 3 years separated, and I'm sorry for that. But if you don't do but one thing for me for the rest of your life, please do this. And that request was to take these words that I had written to him and post them on Craigslist. It was a Craigslist personal ad that I sent to him asking if he could post that for me. He would never respond to me, but it wouldn't be too long after I sent that letter that I knew he had to have posted it for me, because I would start getting mail. It was the craziest. It was a crazy time to be alive. What a time, as a matter of fact. You see, because back during this time, what year was it? It had to be 2013, I believe. God bless it. That seems like a decade ago, actually. More than that, 11 years ago. Yeah, man, back during that time, Craigslist had this section that was men seeking women, women seeking men seeking men, women seeking women. What else was it? Like platonic relationships. Like, there were all these different sections that for whatever reason went away. And I don't understand why. Was it Plenty of Fish coming along and the dating apps that wiped out the dating section of Craigslist? Was it the Craigslist killer? I actually think that might have been what it was. But anyways, back during this time, they had that dating section on Craigslist, and all I did was write a couple of paragraphs, send that to my brother, ask him to post it, and it was like, just like that. I'm talking, Joe had like 2 or 3 pen pals, and one of them would end up becoming my long-term prison girlfriend while I was serving time. Sadly, before I got released, it didn't work out. But, she was a very nice person, and I have nothing but the utmost respect for her. And before we get to her per se, there were a couple of other women that came around. And in fact, I'll never forget this neither. Before I met that long-term girlfriend, there was a buddy of mine, God rest his soul, RIP to Justin Hobbs, a friend of mine from high school, very talented musician, very loving father to a daughter that he had. We were in prison together. All he used to talk about was going home and trying to do the utmost for his kid. And then he would get released and end up passing away. Very sad situation right there. But, me and him kicked it quite a bit while in prison, at the last prison that I was at. And he was actually the one that put me on. He turned me on to the Craigslist way of getting pen pals as a prisoner. And this dude was striking lightning. Little saying right there. This dude was bagging all sorts of women from Craigslist. And all he used to do was write letters. That was what he did to pass the time. He didn't hustle this. He just had fun with it. He wasn't no model looking dude, you know what I mean? Not no bodybuilder. No, he was just an average looking guy, but he was getting tons of women writing him, coming to see him. Before I actually got put on, he actually put me on with one of the women that was writing to him, or the friend of a woman who was writing to him. And she actually turned out to be the craziest. Oh God, man. I wish I could remember her name. Jesus, she was batshit crazy. But yeah, man, he put me on to the friend of one of his pen pals, and it was a short-lived situation. She came to see me like once or twice. I ended up pawning her off to another buddy of mine. It was a crazy time to be in prison. It was a lot like being in high school, except with violence and, scary situations as well. But it was like a little bit like being in school. Sharing all of that to get to the point where I personally went through a handful of women who were either writing to me from the ad that my brother posted, or that one girl that was coming to see me from my buddy Justin. But I would end up having my long-term prisoner pen pal relationship girlfriend situation. And it was through her that all things became possible. Visits, commissary, phone calls, things that I didn't have before. Joe wasn't really going to the store like talking about until this pen pal came along, and she was putting money on my books. But more than that, man, she was doing these auxiliary things that were just helping my hustle tremendously in prison. And one of those things was my prisoner pen pal Casanova connection service that I ran. You see, I picked up the game pretty quick, not just from what I saw that worked in my personal situation, but what I saw working for my buddy Justin, and then what I saw working for like one or two guys that I just helped out off the strength that I rocked with them dudes. I helped my buddy Miko. I helped my bunkie Kenny, K. Weaver. I actually see him on Facebook, Old Sunshine, and I swear he's 5 hours away from me, but if I could get him, that would be crazy. Anyways, I was telling these guys, hey, look, write you a little something positive, whatever, you're going to get, or you have a really good chance of getting some responses. And sure as shit, this was working for them guys. I'll never forget one of the women who actually wrote to my buddy Miko, and this woman asking him to send that. And I'm not talking about no money, ladies and gentlemen. I'm talking about a DNA sample, if you get my drift. Whoever this woman was attempting to use my buddy as the baby bank. Yeah, she wanted Miko to send a little bit of that baby batter back. Put it in a maximum security, state-issued, miniature shampoo bottle. Looks like a little hotel shampoo bottle. Put it in there and send it. Wild. You got to imagine, if you're writing to people on Craigslist who are in prison, and if you're on Craigslist in the first place looking for love, I mean, let's just be honest here. You probably got to, I'm not going to tone it down. Probably got a few screws loose is what I was going to say. But anyways, look, There's plenty of people nowadays who are in relationships with prisoners. It's not as taboo as it once was. So let's go ahead and get to what I was talking about with this idea for a prison story to share with you guys, talking about Joe's prison hustle $1 million scam idea while in prison. This would eventually get to the point where I was charging guys like $10, nothing major, light work, just for my time, because even in prison, I had enough of it, but it was still valuable to me. And, for me to help you out, and if I didn't rock with you, you were going to pay for sure. It's like anything. Nothing is free, not even in prison, especially not there, right? $10 was the price. I had a 95% success rate. So out of 100 people, let's just say, if there were 100 people that used this service of mine, I don't think that there were, but if there were, out of 100 people, 95 of them were going to strike lightning and get some mail, and 5, for whatever reason, just were not. Like I said, I had a 95% success rate with this, but there was that 5%. And let me tell you something. It don't matter how many people it works out for. It's always going to be the ones that it doesn't, who paid you that $10, especially in prison, because $10 in prison is a lot like $100. They're going to be the ones who are not only dissatisfied, but feeling like you either got them, or this was a scam, or it's not them, it's you, talking about me. It was always those people that it didn't work out for that just caused the friction. Now, of course, nobody brought Static Joe's way, because either this prison, was, I don't want to say it was too soft, because there was shit that was going down all the time. But for what, nobody tried to put the old knife in Joe because of this. Thank God, right? But it was with that 5% that it didn't work out for that got me to thinking, because Joe's wheels, they're always turning. I mean, look at the gameplay, for God's sakes. Once I get stuck on something, I try to take that joint to Mars. And this situation was certainly no different. I thought to myself, I said, I got a 95% success rate with this, but what if I could have a 100% success rate? And that got me to thinking, if I could say without a doubt I've got a 100% success rate, then Stickman, you're about to pay me even more for this service. I'm like, man, I could charge like $25 for this if it's guaranteed to work. Now, the way that I would be able to guarantee it is where the scam comes along and, hey, look, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just sharing with you this idea that I had that I never put into motion, and I can justify this and make this sound not as bad as it is. But I thought to myself, I was like, yo, what if I went home? And actually, that was the grand plan, was for me to get released and to begin doing this. So this whole while in prison talk was really just where I came up with the idea. But I said, man, when I get released, I could do this and make a business out of this. I could legit turn this shit into like some Wolf of Wall Street boiler room, phones constantly ringing off the hook type of stuff. Here's how that was coming together in my mind. I said, we could fake it. $25 guaranteed. Forget your rightofprisoners.com and your, all of these other prisoner pen pal sites that were, jumping during this time. Forget all of them. Come rock with After Prison Show Love Below, or Connection, or whatever we could have called this thing. $25, you're guaranteed to get a letter. We would have a boiler room full of people, men, women, old people, whatever, just writing letters. This is Letitia. This is Stephanie. This is Amber. This is Bambi. I'm a stripper. Could you imagine when it came down to the nitty gritty and writing, some nefarious letters? Because, if you don't got the action over the telephone, well, in letters, man, you're writing some steamy content. This is OnlyFans on paper type of stuff back then. Could you imagine some fat dude writing to another dude a sex letter, essentially? I mean, that would be insanity, right? And then what if we just copied that, copy and paste, bada bing, bada boom. Yo, we're just printing money at this point, is what it was seeming like in my mind. It never came to fruition. I know that it sounds horrible, but But think of the implications that that could have had. Now, I know. Could you imagine if I would have done it, got rich doing it? Could you imagine if somehow the cat would have came out of the bag? Ex-prisoner exposed for $1 million Ponzi scheme, pyramid scheme, whatever you would call this. Conning prisoners out of their hard-earned money. Because $25, shit. That's an investment right there in prison. Through fraudulent, counterfeit pen pals. Oh, that would have been a headline. That might have made national news. Like I said, it never came to fruition. I share it with you because I cannot have been the only person who's ever thought of this, right? No, Joe, you are, because you're a piece of shit, is what somebody's typing right now. But seriously, though, I'm sure there's other prisoners who have thought about this idea, right? They haven't? Hey, you ain't ever thought about going home from prison and starting a fake prisoner pen pal service, writing letters to prisoners, acting like a woman for $25? I mean, seriously, selling your soul at that point. You ain't never thought about that? You haven't? Me neither. Me neither. No, I haven't. No. I don't know where that came from. I think I saw it on TV. I thought it was a YouTube video or some shit. Anywho, I share that with you because, you know, the whole shoulda, coulda, wouldas, right? Like I said, here's how I'm going to spin this and justify this. All right, listen. When you talk about a prison scam, folks, they are a many. There are plenty. I think about since I've been released from prison, we had the whole COVID situation. There were prisoners in prison. There were prisoners in prison who were getting stimulus checks, PPE loans. When I was in prison long before COVID, you had these jailhouse lawyers who literally would advertise, yo, get me your social security number, give it to me. I'm going to file a tax return on your behalf and get you a return. Literally witnessed that happening for prisoners. Now, that kind of got exposed because the dude who was doing that had been down for a long time. I don't even know how he learned to do this, but he was doing it. Dudes were getting money. They weren't getting that much, and he was keeping the bulk of it. Can you imagine risking filing a fraudulent tax return and getting a return for it? It's a crazy, crazy world that we live in, folks, and everybody's got a gimmick. Everybody's got a scam and a hustle and an ulterior motive. I'm just real enough to share mine, and I sometimes get a bad rap for that. But regardless, just wanted to share this little idea that I had while I was in prison that I never put into action. And who knows, somebody's probably going to take this idea and run with it. If it works out for you, leave a comment. Let me know. I'd be curious to hear if it's fruitful. And I hope this was a video y'all enjoyed. If it was, hey, please leave a like and a comment on this, letting me know exactly what you thought about this. If you're ready to see Joe get back into the saddle with the prison stories, leave a like and a comment letting me know. As always, until next time, enjoy life, the free world, never take a moment for granted, and make the most of every day. I got to stand back because I'm standing up, which made telling these stories awesome. It kind of feels like I'm doing like Mike night or something.